Welcome back to another episode of Marvel's Pack Fresh podcast with elusive collectibles, sketch card hires, and me, Ginger Man Cards. Justin, Spidey Jew 09 can't be with us at the moment. He may pop on later, he may not. But we invite you to join the pack for the latest episode and the latest updates in the Marvel card world, right? How are you boys, all right?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Half asleep.
Welcome to my world, Gingy. Welcome to my world.
I love it.
So what's going on with you?
So yeah, the first thing we were going to discuss, we just discussed before we went on air.
Yes.
Was Spidey Jew's story with Upperdeck and these replacement cards. So sketch card, fire away, baby.
Okay, so and Spidey Jew 09 will be here. So I'm sure, hopefully, I'll proxy for Spidey. Hey, Billy. So Spidey Jew 09. So what happened? So he had a green Magneto. It was damaged, like much
PMG,
of
right?
metal. PMG green Magneto damaged. Most of us wouldn't necessarily send in our card to get replaced at that stage, right? It was a corner bet. It's a rare card. It's a PMG. Not many of us would send it in. So what ended up happening was that he decided to actually send it in, which is super risky. Less than mail. They didn't receive it. Yada, yada, yada type of deal. And they've been having a lot of replacement cards because of the quality control of X-Men metal because of what happened at the printers during the pandemic. Now you're caught up. So what happened with Spidey, though, however, is he sent that PMG in, and then through their regulation process at Upperdeck, and this is what I'm imagining, what I've heard through the grapevine, yada, 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 is that usually what they'll do and what they have to do when they do a replacement, or what their company policy is, I'm imagining, is that they replace it. If it's a serial number, you get the same kind of serial number value. Exactly. So at that stage, he sent in the green Magneto, he got a green Gambit, right? So that kind of serial number value was comparable there. He also got a printing plate. I'm not sure if there was another thing he sent in for a replacement or if that was still part of the Magneto PMG. There are people who are valuing these things at different levels at Upperdeck. So they understand the different value. They think Magneto PMG, and I believe it was a high series, I'm thinking, from what I remember. Wasn't it? I think it was. So high series, already it's a higher end PMG than a base PMG. It's Magneto, the biggest baddie of X-Men, which I think that's a fact, right? You can't go bigger than Magneto when you go villain, think top tier. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that's why the plate was there, to offset that kind of character tier balance. I don't know. I don't have the answers. This is all speculation. But did show this whole incident, which Elusive and I were just talking about with Gingy before this all started, brought to light a couple of things for people who haven't been dealing with this kind of stuff for a long time, which is this. Well, hell, if they had that Gambit there this whole time, what other out of 10 things do they have? Right? Elusive mentioned the diamonds for Room House. Are there other PMGs? Do they have 2013 PMGs? You know what I mean? Like, what else are they holding?
Should I just read the letter that Justin Spidey got?
Let's do it.
Just to give some more context.
I love it.
You can carry on.
Better than me.
This is my finest English accent. So we are, however, more than happy to replace any damaged cards from our replacement stock, and hope you would enjoy the enclosed replacements. We offer a product replacement for our valued collectors for 1 year, or while supplies last, whichever occurs first. Factory stamped cards will be replaced with factory stamped cards. However, laser printed cards are replaced with hand numbered replacements. Thank you, blah, 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 blah. Upperdeck, blah, blah, blah. That's it.
You think they'd be more professional than putting the blah 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 on the letters, but
Well-
hopefully they can work on that.
No.
Yeah, no, so that makes sense, right? So they're trying to go equal value for equal value. Like I said, the big question now for everybody and everybody else is like, well, what else do they have, right? What else hard number stuff do they have? What am I not finding and all this other kind of stuff? I think what ends up happening in total speculation is that they actually keep boxes and cases and to replace damaged boxes and cases for certain products. And then they have a certain year max where they say, okay, the replacement year for 2015 retro is not going to happen ever again because that redemption process is over, right? Because those boxes are so old. So they're like, okay, now we can crack the boxes we do have and use those as replacement cards.
You think that's what they referred to as the year? When he read that? 1 year? They stated a year.
It was probably a year for metal. I wonder what it was for retro. Because when you look at preliminary redemption cards, those can be redeemed. I think, is it in a year? Maybe it's longer. I don't know if it's always been a year. I don't know what the cutoff is. That's probably why he didn't get a metal for a metal, like an X-Men metal card for an X-Men metal card, because they're still holding boxes and cases. I don't know how many for replacement damaged boxes and damaged cases. You know what I mean? They have to wait for the end date. That's a guess.
That makes sense.
Watch Me Open says 2 years for redemption.
Billy with info. He's got it. See, he's not even asking the question, but he's answering them. Get a job, Billy. God, this guy put me through the ringer on Watch Me Open game show.
Yeah. You still won though, man. You ended up pulling through.
That was nice. That was luck. That was very much luck. But yeah, but this has been around for a while, where a lot of us are kind of like, oh my god, is there one printing plate that I'm missing that Upperdeck's holding as redemption? You know what I mean? Like, that is a nightmare that keeps many of us up at night, and we just don't know. So, but they will get released eventually as redemption, which is good to know. Like, the Gambit eventually came out years later, but it happened.
Yeah. We'll see how many come out with the Spider-Man set, right? Maybe some more replacements come out.
Something's going to happen, I'm sure, because we'll see those X-Men medals, whatever they have there is going to act as replacements for, you know what I mean, in 2 years' time or whatever time it is. So we'll see that cut off and things kind of enter back into the market.
So good. Any questions, by the way? Thank you for people watching, by the way. Any questions you have, please put in the comments and we'll try and run through them. Elusive's got some, hopefully prepared. Maybe. Maybe not.
Hopefully prepared.
Sorry for being on the spot.
No, you're good. No, you're good. I'm ready with one. You want me to start us off with one, or do you guys want to talk about Fanatics first?
Ooh,
Yeah.
Fanatics. So the Fanatics thing, what we're referring to is this, just to give some stuff that's happened and go back a little further. Yesterday on Spidey Juice channel, and I think mine too, was where we spoke to Keith Boyle. And Keith has been in the hobby for a very long time and is very much an OG. And he owns a comic book shop. And he gets cards, Upperdeck dealer, all this kind of stuff from distributors. So he was giving us a little bit of insight into what that whole world was and how it was kind of... And Keith spoke out originally because he felt like a lot of people were upset with what the prices were going to be at local card shops for Spider-Man metal. And there was a lot of concerns, like, he wanted to get it out in the open. Truth is, they get it for a certain price, and if they sell too low, it get all bought up and then put on eBay for a higher price, right? So in a way, putting a higher price increases the odds of having product longer, right? And getting the most money out of the box. At the end of the day, it's a business. That's kind of the stuff that's happening. So he wanted to go ahead and clarify for people what was going on, how this is working, and, what was initially going to happen when Spider-Man metal hits local card shops, if it does at this rate, which is the big concern. And that's kind of what happened there in the discussion, just catching everybody up who's watching live now with us. The Fanatics thing that we're referring to, however, is insane. So it was announced that Fanatics made a statement on what news station? CNBC or something like that? Some news station.
Big network, I think.
Network, right? And basically said they're cutting out the middleman. And they are going to do everything. Grade cards, sell cards,
Secondary market.
store cards, ship cards. Like, it's all going to be under one roof. That's pretty scary for a lot of... Well, in my opinion, I think that's frightening. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how that affects us. Can you guys hear me good or no?
Yes. Awesome, brother.
All right, perfect. I was going to say, I don't know how that affects us with Marvel because I don't know if they're taking over Upperdeck. I know they're taking over Topps and Panini. So I don't know if Marvel's going to be affected by that at all, or if Disney pulls their IP from them, regardless down the line. But
yeah, and just to be clear, Fanatics is not, because we're talking about something else. I want you guys to know, Fanatics is not taking over Topps and Panini. They took away their licenses for some of the most, if not all, the big sports, NBA, MLB, all those kind of biggies. They went to them directly. They paid quite a bit of money. Topps and Panini had an opportunity to overcome their bids, but couldn't afford it. And basically, from what I understand,
they lost the auction.
Lost it basically, and gave players lost the auction. Damn that last minute bid. And they basically lost Snipe, son. And they basically lost and they also promised players kickbacks for their own cards too, which is super crazy and not have been done before. So there were quite a few things in there. It wasn't only money. Money was a big component, but it was also like a lot of promises, a lot of things were going on too.
Well, and you could clarify this for me. I mean, right away where my brain goes when you mention that is, okay, and then we all know that that's not going to take place for another 4 to 5 years, right? Some of those.
Yeah, we have a timeline. I don't remember what it was, but for sure.
Somewhere around that timeline, right? What's
that.
Concerning for me is like someone like David Adams, that's a huge distributor, right? What their Fanatics are pretty much saying is they're going to cut them off, right? Amongst many other people. But, right? Or almost.
I wonder. It's weird because,
if it's direct to consumer, then that means...
It should be, right? Like, yeah. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. Like, we talked a little bit about that on that episode. Not what you mentioned directly, but we were kind of speculating what that means. You know what I mean?
Because the concern is this. If I'm David Adams and you pretty much just gave me a warning, you pretty much just told me, hey, in 4 years, your contract's up and I'm not going to sell to you anymore. I'm going to sell direct to consumer. Well, if I'm David Adams, what am I going to do? I'm going to hold as much product as I can now, because that might affect them with modern product and future product. But, for example, David Adams is always buying boxes, right? If you ever go to their site and they're out of stock for a certain box, quote unquote, out of stock, whatever that means, they'll put buying. And so they're acquiring more, right? So, for all we know, I mean, I in May bought a box of 2017 Fleer Retro from them. So how many of those do they have stashed away? Right? So even when their contract's up, what are people going to gravitate more towards anyway? Vintage. So there's still going to be some type of middleman, whether it's David Adams at the biggest scale,
for sure,
or your Pen 66s of the world.
No, there's no way. And how does a company go direct to consumer? I know Fanatics, and I don't know a lot about sports, so I'm not the guy. But I will say this: I do know there's a Fanatics shopping thingy inside arenas where these sports are played. That's the best I got, sorry. And at these places, you can buy cards, you can buy memorabilia, jerseys, hats, all the stuff that comes with the men who play sports. But that's where they have. So, direct to consumer, Fanatics really doesn't have the infrastructure to get to, let's say, me, right? Or someone who is not going to a game super frequently, right? So does that mean Fanatics going to be a franchise and take over local card shops? And like, are you going to see a Fanatics pop up in your area with like stuff to buy? Like, you know what I mean? It's pretty confusing how they're going to distribute it. So like looking at David Adams, like you said, vintage is, and not vintage, but everything post Fanatic, right? Because if that's really the future, which is scary, because then Fanatics is controller of everything, right? Everything that came before Fanatics is going to be really honed in on. It's going to have a huge target on its back, in my opinion.
Yep. No, I agree. And you know, the other thing that, for me, that one of the positive things about that is PSA is going to have competition because they're also trying to monopolize the industry by buying up auction houses, the grading, right? So if you have someone like Fanatics, they could stand up to them as far as, you know, money for money. If that, what each company's worth, that's probably going to be some healthy competition.
Yeah. Things are going to get super interesting. Like for me, I see them acting as, you know, eBay is a one-stop shop for most things, right? Boxes, singles, you can get everything. I think they'll just create a platform like that. And again, this is my personal opinion and speculation, and then that will be the one-stop shop for everything.
Interesting.
But the thing for me is grading. That's going to be mad when that happens. That's going to change the game.
I don't know how the same people who print the stock can grade the stock. Like, I don't like that at all. I understand there's some delineation there. It's not like they're going to print better stock and reserve it for them and cut those sheets extra fine. Like, I have to be realistic. You know, this is going to happen in a factory setting. Is there going to be some foul play? Yeah. But then that would be fraud. So, again, I don't know all the legalities here or anything like that, but I'm assuming.
You didn't hear, but they're buying out the courts and jails as well.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. And then local police. See, that's the way to do it. Soon the teachers, and I'll be working for them. So perfect. Who needs judges? We just need fanatics. It's very strange. You know, I did hear, and I wasn't sure if it was from Keith. I'm sure it was from Keith, who said, you know, a pump and dump type of situation. You grab everything and then you sell your thing. You just sell Fanatics all of a sudden, you know, and then someone can go deal with it all then once it's all gobbled up. That makes sense. That happens in the corporate world from what I hear, from what I'm aware of. I think what's really interesting about all this, and this is kind of what I want to ask you guys about, is what does this mean for collectibles? Like when it's being this kind of like, it's having this kind of hyper focus on it. So what does that mean for these things, you know?
Well, for one, though, we need to hold. Right?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah. I do think,
sure.
yeah. I do think things are going to be harder and harder to get. Which is interesting because that's going to be an interesting turn of events for a boom, because then demand will go up and supply will be low, which is pretty fascinating to see. I wonder if that will hold. I wonder if that will be what people will do. I'm interested to see all that.
But like we mentioned this before, it can only be, I don't say only, because there are some downsides, but it is a good thing. Like, this is big dogs, and when I say big dogs, as an expression, like guys that know what they're doing with serious deep pockets coming into the industry and seeing, there's something going on here for sure. Let's do something with it. So I don't know. I think, and also if you're a new collector in 5 years' time, it's going to be more seamless. People are going to be like, okay, this is what I got to do. This is where I can buy cards. Bosh, bish, bash, bosh. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a simplified process to new collectors. So for me, that blows everything. But again, as you said, it's difficult to know up until that point what will happen, especially with Mastercard.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I just recently was watching something, and I'm going to do a video for it, but I want to mention it here because I respect both of your opinions, so I want to ask you guys about it. But I was just watching something that Prism was showing me, Mr. Prism, and he sent me this video to show me this, and I've been getting this from a lot of collectors as well, other collectors who are like, you know, it seems like you really love the hobby, you should be careful, you know, protect it, there's a lot of things going on that, you know, doesn't meet the proper standards and is not on the up and up. And there was this wonderful video that I watched, and I'll put the link in the description after all this stuff so you guys can see it for yourself, where they're talking about what happened to graded games. and how basically, I think you guys might have saw it, or you guys got the link as well, but it's, yes, the WADA. So basically what happened with video games, and it's very different from cards, and I'll explain to you why. Video games, in this video, and it claims that auction houses, one in particular, Heritage and WADA Games, who was new to grading and is not as old as VGA, which I think is the original people who were grading, basically started buying sealed games and grading them at high grades and then selling them on the auction house for high money, and then kind of making the boom for video games and sealed video games. Now, the real issue here is not that they did it that way, that people at Heritage Auction worked with WADA to up the industry with video games, so people who worked at one particular place would buy tons of games that were sealed, and then after a while let them go slowly and build up the price. Or put one up on auction that they own, buy it themselves for like $5,000, $10,000 more, and then say, oh, there's a price increase, here's the latest comps, right? You'd have to be an idiot to think that's only happening there, A, not happening in cards, or B, not happening in comic books or TCG or wherever. This is everything. This is the world. There are people who are in this hobby who can afford this, and they're playing a very different game for all of us who actually collect. That is a fact of life. The question I had for you, and the thing I was been thinking about myself, is that, and the difference with the video gaming real quickly, is that the video game world doesn't have a pop report. WADA doesn't have a pop report. Which, yeah, Liz is like, what? Which is crazy to me. No, it blew my mind, because that's really shady. At least we have pop reports. I mean, people crack cases and stuff like that, sure, but at least we have pop reports. I wouldn't be in the game. I wouldn't get graded cards if we didn't have pop reports. Fact. I just wouldn't do it, because then they could just be. You wouldn't know what card was selling. You wouldn't have a number. You wouldn't have a track. It'd just be insanity to get to that stage. But my question to you guys is this. Seeing what's happening with collectibles and how grading is becoming so integral, and looking at Fanatics, right? And they're going to be grading their own cards and all this other stuff. What do you think is being lost from the hobby because of this influx of popularity?
I would say you're going to lose out on a lot of new collectors. New collectors are going to be priced out. I don't know. I mean, what comes to mind, and I mean, this is the best analogy I could come up with on the spot. But let's say, for example, we had money in crypto, and it was crypto X as the cryptocurrency, let's just say. And we each put $100 in there or $1,000 in there. And we get word that in a couple of years, big investors are going to throw in a bunch of money. So you're just pretty much been told that the currency that you hold is about to become super, like multiplied by either 10 or 20x. So that's where the holding comes in, right? You definitely want to hold, because you're pretty much being told, hey, whatever you're holding is just going to become way more valuable. But again, so I think that's what's going to be lost also, like just fun for the sake of the artwork. I think it's going to be based more around comps again. I think it's going to turn slowly more into like the sports market, where you see kids, and I've brought this up before, because it is a little bit sad to see when you're seeing, especially at their age groups, when you're seeing like 8 to 12-year-olds trading, and all they're asking about is what the last comp on the card was. I think that kind of stuff is going to be lost.
I do, whilst I agree, I do think PSA, BGS, I do think all of those grading companies will still have a place, in my opinion. As alongside Fanatics doing their thing, it will be a big, people will gravitate towards obviously probably using them if the service is good, etc. So I think, especially with a growing market like collectibles in general, there's space for both. And I see, like Gary V says this thing, and or. Do you know what I mean? I'm sorry if you're a Gary V hater.
No, I love that.
No, but he's right. It's or.
Yeah, and I mean, always will be too. Yeah, you're always going to have choices. I think it's impossible to say you won't have choices, even though in the card world, historically, we haven't had many choices, right? Upperdeck is Marvel only. You know what I mean? Unless you want to go Topps Digital or Panini for stickers and cards and buy them overseas, right? There is very much an only at some stages here. But, you know, you go eBay, you can buy other things, blah, 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 blah. But I think what's interesting, so I agree with all of that. I think it's going to make this harder for new collectors. It's going to disillusion a lot of people about the hobby. A lot of collections are going to be sold. A lot of collections won't be seen ever again. People are just going to, I think we might see an extreme of where people just put them in a chest and throw that chest in the attic or basement, and that's it. And be like, nah, I'm going to ignore this for a few years. And things are just like out of the public eye, which has happened in Marvel cards particularly. So I think that's going to happen. I think the two extremes are going to happen. The thing that I'm interested in seeing, and then we will get to Q&As, because that's kind of like what half the episode will be, is like us talking to you guys, Q&As, and all that kind of good stuff. I wonder, we're going to see DC coming back. I think something's going to happen with DC. Sorry, Gingy. I think something with DC is going to be happening soon. I think things will be happening with other franchises, IPs, very soon in the card world. I think we'll see Upperdeck or Topps make a play for things that we normally would be like, wow, have they ever made cards before? Are there Nintendo cards? Like, what's going on here? And Nintendo does make cards, Amiibo cards, Animal Crossing Amiibo cards. Like, you know, there's little things here, game cards, they do exist. But I'd be interested to see if Topps or Upperdeck or Panini or somebody goes for the big non-sport licenses. That's what I'm interested in seeing, because that's what's next. You know what I mean? Because it looks like, other than soccer, Formula One, and I think UFC, those are the only ones that. Yeah, UFC's huge, right? Wrestling's getting big too right now. I think those are not under the Fanatic banner right now, which is interesting.
And they're the growth areas currently.
Yeah, and they're the big growth areas, right? They're the ones that are climbing. So I wonder where those will go, because right now everything feels like someone threw a bunch of stuff on the table, two hands went down, grabbed the biggest portions, and everything else is kind of scattered. So you're like, is this going to get organized? Okay. Or is this, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder what that situation is going to be like in a year.
Yeah, where's Marvel going to go with their mom or dad, right? Their parents split up. To your point, though, I think
don't make me choose.
I think Topps is doing a good job with Star Wars, which is already owned by Disney. So I don't see as a far cry for Topps to pick up the Marvel license. And I think it would be awesome because, you know, they do great artwork. Their foiling is top tier. I think just rivaled by Rittenhouse would probably be the only people that will rival their foiling. But yeah,
I'd be surprised because Upperdeck does a great job with Marvel. It's you know, I think the issue a lot of times with them is how the licensing is being dealt with, right? And that's what happens to a lot of people, like poor Rittenhouse. You know, Rittenhouse, Sci-Fi Hobby, Rittenhouse does a lot of good work, and they're still making cards. And they're responsible for most of the James Bond cards that are out there. And they're highly wonderful and highly collectible. Movie out now, right? So I thought it'd be topical. And it's funny how you see these companies kind of like struggle with releasing certain sets and doing some interesting things. And it's mostly because the licensor doesn't want to do it. You know what I mean? Or there's a loophole in a contract. But I do think what's nice about all this attention on the cards, like Gingy said, is that some of these licensors will look at their product and be like, wait a minute, we're kind of missing a step here by not, like, you know, lining up with somebody, getting these things going. I like to see Upperdeck convince Marvel to have on-card autographs. I want to see that world come to fruition. There's no reason that a Black Widow set is coming up on upperdeck.epack.com, which, by the way, you should check that out. It's pretty cool. There's a new set called Black Widow coming out. It's weekly. It's similar to the Marvel Unbound. And they don't have Scarlett Johansson's autograph in there. Not even sticker. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And I know it's not Upperdeck's fault at all. I'm not throwing shade at them. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that Marvel needs to take it more seriously and look at Like, you can't tell me Star Wars can have a Mark Hamill and a Harrison Ford sticker still, right, in their products, and you're getting those, and on card as well, from those level actors in the Star Wars world, and Marvel can't do that. That doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it just depends, right? Like when this much money comes into an industry, they could either see it as, okay, we're going to get our shit together, we're going to try harder, we're going to do better sets, better quality, or they could see it as also, well, you know what, the demand is there, everybody wants it, so we could just continue to do what we're doing because they're going to buy it either way.
I think they're going to run into a problem if they're assuming that, because I don't think people are going to buy it either way, and that will dry up. There are a lot of people who are not happy about life right now. And I can be honest with you, if people think they're going to continue the norm with the way they are doing Marvel cards and these other cards, they're wrong. Because people will sink back and not do this stuff. You're going to see it. You're going to see people slowly stop participating.
So you're saying where recently we've had people come out and show their cards and like big collectors, you're saying that they will not do that anymore and they will go back to hiding. Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
they should. Why wouldn't they? They're going to retreat, right? I mean, unless they're looking to sell or live inside a community, which hopefully we're building that here now, right? Why not retreat? Why not do something else? Like, I'm hearing from a lot of Marvel collectors. I was just having this conversation with someone and they were like, you know what, man, I'm kind of enjoy getting these autos from this show. Kind of tired of Marvel. I'm tired of hearing the yelling, the screaming, the clawing over each other. Man, I'm kind of having a good time buying this over here. And they're taking breaks and they're, slipping away. Not like forever. Hardcore fans are going to be around. But, people are getting distracted. There is a question on here, and I think we should do something kind of cool. And I want to ask you guys what you think. How about I screen share and we look at some tips and tricks on EPAC and talk about it a bit and use this half episode as a tutorial?
I'm down with that. I think we wanted to do it for ages, no?
Let's do it. Beautiful.
Go on, Elusive, what are you going to say?
What are you going to say, buddy?
What were we just talking about before we touched on this real quick?
So what we were saying is just how the backlash.
The collectors retreating. I disagree, and only from this perspective. Like, I disagree because you see this in Pokemon where a lot of the old school collectors that are whales, right? Like the big collectors, comparable to the people that we see here in the community, your Pen 66s. All they did was just stay away from modern Pokemon, and they only deal with the WotC era cards. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if whomever gets the license, if they don't do a good job, vintage is always going to be around, and that market is always going to be around. So people will just put more emphasis into that market. I think that's what will end up happening. I think older sets are going to be more appreciated. I think people are going to take deeper dives into sets and promos and cards that they weren't looking into before, because now they're not looking forward to the new set that's coming out. So
let me ask you guys a question, and this is interesting because Gingy and Elusive, you guys have been buying up Marvel now for a while and looking at these cards and really getting pretty intimate with sets that I don't even know because Surfer's not in them and I just haven't had the time to do everything. Personally, from my perspective, I think the well is going to dry at one point. I don't know if you guys agree. Like, I feel like it might come to a point where people can't find certain Marvel cards. And things might just the good stuff. You know what I mean? Not like the base, you know what I mean? The real...
Yeah. I mean, Elusive was just talking about that exact fact, weren't you, really?
Yeah.
About, having cards ready to trade and things like that if they become available. But, the if part of that, I've definitely seen from what I look at in terms of sales, eBay sold and completed, etc. There's definitely an aspect of that happening for sure, because you don't see anything reappear, is what I'm trying to say.
I'm not seeing it personally at all.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game, right? I think it's trading in our community. I think it's trading more so than sales, just because, again, if people are jumping into this market, it's because they don't value. Hey, what's going on, Justin?
Hey, buddy.
Hey, sorry I missed the first part of the show.
You're good.
No worries.
The second part's the best. So
Yeah, y'all having fun?
Yeah, Elusive's about to give us a hot take on something real quick.
No, yeah, I was just going to say that I think that, people are valuing the dollar less, right? So, which is why you see people putting their money into collectibles. So, think about it, if you're a collector that holds nice pieces, why are you ever going to sell a nice piece when it's not money you're looking for? It's probably other pieces you're looking for. So, right? So, in this kind of trade market, I would say it's better to have really high-end cards for trades because people are going to prefer a trade than your money.
I love that, man. So true. And I've learned that lesson the hard way. It really comes down to trades at the end of the day. And Elusive's dropping that that genius knowledge there. Like, seriously, I would definitely be careful and really consider what you have before not finding things again. I do think that's a danger. Like, we were just talking, Spidey, like, I was telling Gingy and Elusive, and they spoke to this, I think it's going to get harder and harder to find Marvel cards. Not necessarily like what we were talking about on your channel, which we also covered a bit, getting new boxes or e-pack and stuff like that. But like Marvel cards in general, like on eBay or, third market, all this kind of stuff. Like, I feel like the well will dry up or get close to drying up. It won't disappear, but I think a lot of things are going to get harder and harder to find. Are you seeing that in like your collecting kind of sphere?
Yeah, I mean, someone who's still kind of relatively new to, this year getting cards, I would say that I already can sense that there's been a constraint in terms of getting cards. And I'm still getting them. You might have to pay a little bit more. You might have to hunt a little bit longer, but it's not like, oh, let me go find this real quick. Do I want to buy it? It's, will it pop up? And when it does, am I ready to get it?
Yeah, they're not give-me's anymore, right?
Yeah. No, they're really not. It's getting tougher and tougher. So let's look at this question.
yeah.
Do you think MM22 will have the same print run as 16, 18, and 20? So he's talking about Marvel Masterpieces. Will it increase? If not 2022, then when, or will they continue as is?
Yeah, I think they'll increase it. I think it's the same example you're seeing with the metal. For example, I'm sure the X-Men metal is going to have a shorter print run than the Spider-Man metal coming up, right? Because that's because they're anticipating the bigger demand as well.
I would agree. I would say, just to give a counterpoint the other direction, it's original art. So you'd have to have if we're doing one individual artist, it's still going to be hard to put out more art. Then they have to create other inserts, and the inserts in Masterpiece is pretty set. They may do something different, but
I think the metallurgy was part of that increase. You know what I mean? There was no metallurgy in 16 and 18. And 22, because they're hand numbered to 25, those metallurgies kind of increased the numbers a bit, and they also had the preliminary art. So I don't think we'll see an increase in the art. I don't think we'll see an increase in the hard numbers. I think they're going to stick to that formula for as long as they can because it's really working for them, which I think a lot of collectors feel the same. But I do think, like Elusive, like Spidey, basically a combination of what you both said, I definitely think that what's going to happen is they're going to put another insert in there, or they're going to increase the number of an insert, something along those lines.
Non-numbered base cards. Gosh, if they do that, it's going to be tough to buy 3 cards a pack.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll do that. There's no way they'll do that because I know for a fact that Upperdeck considers Masterpieces as the top tier, right with Premier. Like, they consider that top level. Like, you have to start thinking about these sets and level. You know what I mean? Because what ends up happening is you understand the problem with X-Men Metal was such an issue is because X-Men Metal was below Fleer Ultra. It wasn't supposed to be considered a premium set. What they messed up on, and this is true, is that they put PMGs in there, which didn't make sense. Because how can you put PMGs in there and expect that set to be lower than a Fleer Ultra? That's not right. That doesn't compute. But that's what their predicament was. They wanted it at a lower price point and below a Fleer Ultra rail. And what happened is collectors got into it, saw PMGs, and said, well, this is not a low entry point set. This should be higher. But the problem is the set's already made, and they're only looking at PMGs as higher. So you have that price discrepancy.
The only thing on that point, Sketchcard, too, is if you think about it this way, I don't know why they're, if they are, right? But just going based on what you're saying, I don't know why they would be so concerned about the price points leading up to the release. Because if you really think about it, after it's released, the market really dictates what they think the box is worth. So
I think they do it because of the designing. So like let's say you were making a set, right? Like we did on your show, right? Collectors to Collectors. You know what I mean? So like if you and I are going into it and we're making a set and making inserts, we're not going to put an insert in there that's 5 out of 5 in Marvel Annual. You know what I mean? You see what I mean? Like it's not gonna, you're not gonna sell a box that took more money to make as an insert and lose money selling the box at $100. Is what I'm thinking. Is why I think they do that.
Well, the first question based on what you're saying is, do you really think they lose money in general anyway?
Yeah, 100%. I think if you make cards, let's say this. Let's say it takes me X amount of money to make particular sets of cards, right? Foiling costs money. The artist, the thickness of the cards, right? An artist at this level as opposed to this level is going to be a price difference. If I buy a box and I make an artist do original art and the artist is up here, like at this level, and I have to pay him like hundreds of thousands of dollars to do the art, but then I sell each box for $50, I lose money, right? That's what happened with Black Diamond. Black Diamond was so expensive because of all the signers. They gave out a lot of sticker autographs, and more importantly, they gave out sticker autographs that had inscriptions. That they used a lot of them. Like, you got to be careful. Those are not infinite stickers, right? They did a whole sheet at a particular time to get those actually to sit down and do all that stuff. That's a lot of time. So I think they do budget in how much a set would be, and then a hierarchy. They have to be like, well, we're going to release this as a $100 set, so we shouldn't be spending this X amount of money.
No, yeah, again, no, that makes sense from yeah, I know what you're referring to. I was mainly referring to like the price after it's released. You know what I mean? Like what the secondary market, in other words. That's all. But everything you said makes sense, of course. Yeah, you're not gonna release a $50 box if it costs you Marvel Masterpiece money.
Well, thinking through that logic that Sketch Card has, I mean, Spider-Man Metal's going to have Amazing Fantasy 15 comic cuts in it. I don't care how you splice it. That was not cheap. That was a big budget item.
They saw X-Men Metal and they were like, well, this should be a bigger set and a bigger tier set. And that's why you're seeing the Z-Power stuff. That's why you see that Amazing Fantasy thing, which is the Grail. That's why you're seeing the set increase in size, because they were like, well, we predicted way too low on X-Men. Let's go higher with Spider-Man. And I think they adjusted accordingly. You know what I mean? I'd be interested to know what X-Men released for as opposed to what Spider-Man released for. I don't know the numbers on that. That'd be interesting.
400 pre-order for Spider-Man Metal.
That's ridiculous. I mean, that's the pre-order from, what's the Yahoos? Was it Blowout or David Adams?
I can't remember, yeah.
There goes our sponsorship. But, damn, gone already. Steel City, thank you. Good. So David Adams, Blowout, we're still good. So if you want to give us your money, please do. But
this
yes.
is because of you.
Oh, did you get it? You got it. Yes. Read what it says. It's so cool. Holy mackerel.
Yeah. Holy mackerel. What's that?
Mackerel.
It's Dr. Doom.
Wow. It sounds like Spidey said it himself.
First appearance, Dr. Doom. AMS 3.
How important is that card going to be in the future? That book is going to be a no-show at one point.
Yeah. I mean,
no way.
The book's already, especially since Dr. Doom's been, revealed again in the newest trailer. That book is
gone, skyrocket, and then you have the first appearance of that tentacle in that comics. I love that. I'm so glad you got that. Damn.
Doom
cool.
card's in the chat as well, so he's like loving
it. Doom.
No, and it's very fitting because Justin, that he has a lot of knowledge with comics, so it resonates. Those kind of, comic cuts resonate with him the most, for sure.
I love comic cuts.
Well,
so
you saw where Sports Card Investor did a post where he went into a new shop in Atlanta that is sports cards and comic books and comic cards mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. They definitely go hand in hand,
Yeah.
Marvel cards will be in the next shop.
I was thinking this weekend, man, I wish there was something that was like sports cards and Marvel bar where I could go sit down, eat a pizza, have something to drink, and and open a box of cards. Like buy it all at the same place and enjoy it with some buddies while watching the game. Like I would love.
There's
that.
like a wash up area next to where you open your cards. So after you get your pizza, like please wash up first.
Open responsibly. That would be
Open responsibly. Oh my God, that's going to be on a T-shirt.
You're in luck, Justin. Fanatics is going to open that for you. They're going to own that too.
Thank you, Fanatics. Yeah.
They're going to own that too.
They're going to one-stop shop. Well, so like 3 weeks ago, me and a buddy went to Walmart and bought some baseball cards. I don't do baseball cards. Went to a restaurant, watched the Thursday night football game, and ate food, washed up, and then opened up some packs.
So jealous of your life. Damn it. That sounds like fun. Why don't we live closer to each other? This is garbage, by the way. Damn, all of us should hang out. Damn, this sounds fun, man. That's great.
It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So do we have any questions in the chat that I've been hogging and not neglecting completely? I know they wanted to see an EPAC 101. I know we don't want to go too long on this, so we will do a special episode with Marvel Pack Fresh where we'll do a separate one with EPAC for sure. And we'll do a whole tutorial.
Let's just commit to escalating that when X-Men Metal comes out.
Good
I
timing.
love that. Done. God, when is that? That should be soon. That needs to be soon. That has to be.
It feels like the next week or two, but
It needs to be.
With Black Widow coming out, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, that's right.
So we talked about Black Widow on EPAC a little bit. Do you want to go into that a little bit more?
Yeah,
Hey guys,
I can go into.
I've got to jump off real quick. My family got back.
All right, buddy.
They just came back.
Go ahead, buddy. You can enjoy yourself, brother.
See you, bud. Bye.
No
Later.
more pizza.